boys and girls, here we are back at Rocky Railway for day 4. Have you been able to watch all week long? Well, guess what? If you've missed one of our episodes, you're going to be able to go back and watch the ones you've missed. Or if you want to watch the whole thing by the time we're finished tomorrow, you can do that as well. Well, Pastor Sue here again with you, and with me again is Mrs. Jen.
Hello.
Mrs. Jen, how are you doing today?
Good. This week has been so much fun.
And it is going so fast, isn't it?
It is. I can't believe it's day 4.
I know. Well, speaking of going fast, our train trivia today sort of talks about that. So did you know that steam locomotives, they were developed way back in the 19th century before electric and diesel locomotives replaced them in the 20th century? Now, today, some train services can go like 300 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
That's like 3 times faster than a car, depending on who's driving, of course. We have a really great Bible verse today. Our Bible verse is found in Romans chapter 8, verse 11, and it says, "The Spirit of God, who raised Jesus from the dead, lives in you." You know, Mrs. Jen, today our Bible story, I'm actually going to tell another story before I bring the Bible part in, and it really helps boys and girls and grown-ups understand why God has sent His Son, Jesus. And so this is actually probably my favorite day as far as the Bible lesson goes. And I know we have a great Bible point to go along with that.
Yes. Our Bible point today is Jesus' power lets us live forever.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to learn that lesson today with Finn. He's going to help us. He's a rainbow trout.
Yum, yum.
Yeah. So
Not today.
he's going to help us today and remember our Bible point.
Okay. I think we can meet him right now.
Yes.
Okay, Finn, here we go.
Are you ready to splash into another fantastic day at VBS? I'm Finn, a rainbow trout. I'm happiest when I'm taking a dip in a clean, bubbly mountain stream. This is the life. This stream is where I began life. This exact spot where I hatched is pretty important to me, but we'll get to that later. I spend most of my day flipping my fins, swishing my scales, and exploring this awesome river looking for food. I love to eat. Me and my fishy friends spend about 80% of our day looking for food. I use my mouth to poke around and look for good stuff to eat. And sometimes I end up getting a mouthful of weeds and sticks. Not bad. Of course, it's not as good as the bugs or the crustaceans I usually like. I'll even jump out of the water for them. God gave me something super sharp to help me find food. My eyes. They show me what to eat and what to stay away from. After being born, I might travel to a new stream far away from my home. But when it's time to lay eggs, rainbow trout always return home. My cousins, steelhead trout, travel from a freshwater stream all the way to the ocean. Even if they've lived in the ocean for a couple of years, they swim against the stream to make it back home. That takes a lot of power. Wow. Home is important to me and my fish family. Jesus knew that a forever home was important too. That's why Jesus died, to pay for all the wrong things you've ever done or will ever do. Because those sins are paid for, you can have life forever in an awesome place called heaven. But Jesus' power doesn't just cover your sins. Jesus is so powerful that He beat death forever. But it gets even better. The Bible tells us the Spirit of God, who raised Jesus from the dead, lives in you. That means a friendship with Jesus gives you the same awesome power that let Him beat death. Wow! So, if you're feeling worried or sad, or things seem out of control, remember that Jesus' power is bigger than anything, and it's right there for you. Jesus' power lets us live forever. Trust Jesus.
Hey friends! So I I heard that our friend Cam was able to get the train up and over the mountain. He probably won't be back for a few hours, so we'll have to ask him about it later.
I'm here. I made it.
Oh, Cam! What happened to you? Traveling on a train isn't supposed to be that tiring. Isn't the train supposed to do all the work?
Oh, no, everything went great. We delivered the M&Ms and everyone was so happy. And we turned the train around to come back, and we were on our way back, and then I started thinking how great it would be if we got back faster.
Aw, did you miss us?
Yeah, of course. But in order to make the train go faster, you need to make more steam. And in order to make more steam, you need to make the furnace hotter. And in order to make the furnace hotter, you gotta shovel more coal. So there we were shoveling coal. And it wasn't enough, so we added more coal. And then...
And then you got here faster.
No, we ran out of coal.
Oh, that's tiring and frustrating.
Yeah, just when I thought we were gonna make it, the train came to a halt miles away from the station. And I went off hiking to find help while the rest of the crew stayed with the train.
Wow. Well, everything comes to an end. Coal runs out, trains stop, parties end, people graduate from school, adults retire. It's just a part of life.
Well, that is not the most encouraging thing you've ever told me.
Let me finish. Today, my friends and I are learning that Jesus' power lets us live forever. And thanks to Jesus, life can continue on forever and never run out.
Wow, that is the most encouraging thing you've ever told me.
See? I just needed to end my story.
Yeah, but I haven't known anyone who lived forever.
Then it sounds like you need to hear more about Jesus, Cam. I'm happy to tell you about him because, well, he's my forever friend.
Well, let me go find a train that can go save the rest of my crew, and then when I get back, you can tell me everything you have to say.
Okay, I'll be right here waiting. Forever.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
We trust in you, Jesus. You're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's forever. You make us bold and we stand together. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. We're off on this journey. There's no looking back. With Jesus to lead us, we're on the right track. Oh, 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 oh. Wide open spaces for wide open eyes. We're looking ahead for the next big surprise. Oh, 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 oh. We trust in you, Jesus. You're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's forever. You make us bold and we stand together. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. We're off on this journey. There's no looking back. With Jesus to lead us, we're on the right track. Oh, 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 oh. Wide open spaces for wide open eyes. We're looking ahead for the next big surprise. Oh, 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 oh. We trust in you, Jesus. You're all that we need. Your power will pull us through. We're trusting in you. We're trusting in you. You give us hope and life that's heaven and earth. You are amazing. You hold me up with your hand. You give me faith, and I will put my hope in you alone. In you alone. God of heaven and earth, you are amazing. You hold me up with your hand. You give me faith, and I will put my hope in you alone. In you alone.
I will put my hope in you, Lord. You alone are everything I need. My hope is in you alone, in you alone. I will put my hope in you, Lord. You alone are everything I need. My hope is in you alone, in you alone.
Heaven and earth, you are amazing. You hold me up with your hand. You give me faith, and
Everything I need. My hope is in you alone, in you alone.
heaven and earth, you are amazing. You hold me up with your hand. You give me faith, and
Everything I need. My hope is in you alone, in you alone.
heaven and earth, you are amazing. You hold me up with your hand. You give me faith, and I will put my hope in you alone. In you alone. God of heaven and earth, you are amazing. You hold me up with your hand. You give me faith, and I will put my hope in you alone. In you alone.
Boys and girls, I am so excited to share our story today. It is one of my absolute favorite stories to tell kids. I'm going to tell you a story that talks about 3 trees. And I love that I can actually tell it to you right in front of a beautiful mountain trail where people go hiking, because in my story, there is a family that goes hiking in the woods. Well, in this story, there are 3 trees and a mum tree. And they just live in a beautiful forest like the one behind me. And they enjoy their time. They love watching families come in to hike and go the trails and walk by them. And one day, the mother got thinking, and she said to her trees, "Little trees, what would you like to be made into when you grow up to be big trees?" Well, that first tree said, "Oh, Mother, I love when families come into the woods and they look at us and they just have these sweet, adorable little babies. Mother Tree, I think that when I grow up and they cut me down, I would like to be made into a beautiful baby's cradle. And I could just rock babies back and forth all day long. Isn't that a good dream to have, Mother?" And the Mother Tree said, "Oh, little tree, yes, that is a great dream to have." Well, she went to her other second tree and she said, "Little tree, what would you like to be made into when you grow up?" And that second tree said, "Oh, Mother, really? A baby's cradle? I don't want to be anything like that. When I grow up, I want the lumberjacks to see what a great specimen of wood I am. And I want to be made into something important. I want to be made into a big, sturdy ship. And I want to carry important people over the waters. And I want to be carrying precious cargo like gold and diamonds and jewels. Isn't that a great dream to have, Mother?" And that Mother Tree said, "Little tree, when you want to be more important than somebody else, that is called pride. That is not a good thing. And little tree, I am afraid that if you grow up and your dream comes true, you are going to be very, very unhappy." Well, then she went to the third tree and she said, "Little tree, what do you want to be made into when you grow up?" And that third tree said, "Oh, Mother, when I grow up, I don't want to be cut down and made into anything. I just want to stay here and I want to grow straight and tall in the forest. I want my roots to go down deep. And I want to be so tall that I point people to God. Is that a good dream to have, Mother?" And that mother tree said, "Oh, my tree, that is a great dream to have, pointing people to God." Well, a few years passed, and then some men came into the woods, and they started to cut down that first tree. And the first tree said, "Oh, finally, I'm so excited. They're going to cut me down, and they're going to make me into a really pretty little baby's cradle. I'm going to cuddle and just rock those babies back and forth." But that didn't happen. Instead, they took the wood from that tree and they made it into a rough stable, like a manger that they put hay in for animals to eat out of. And that little tree was so upset. The tree said, No, my life wasn't supposed to go like this. I was supposed to be made into a cradle and rock babies. And look, they've made me into a manger with hay that dirty old horses and cows eat of. Oh, my life is such a disaster." But God said, "Wait, I want you to see something." And boys and girls, one night in a town called Bethlehem, a man and a woman came into a stable, and the woman was about to have a baby. And she did have a baby. And they didn't have a beautiful crib to put their baby in, so they put their newborn baby in the manger. And the little tree realized that he was part of a great thing. He wanted to rock babies back and forth to sleep. You see, that baby was a very special baby. It was Jesus, God's Son. And the tree realized, wow, God has used me in part of a miracle. I am holding the most important baby ever born. Well, then they came back into the woods and they cut down that second tree. And the second tree said, "Well, it's about time." They recognized what a fine specimen of wood I am. Now they're going to cut me down. They're going to make me into a beautiful ship. And I am going to sail with kings and queens and world rulers and diamonds and jewels. But that didn't happen. Instead, they took the wood from that tree and they made it into a rough old fishing boat. And that tree was so disappointed. He said, "I can't believe my life has come to this. Instead of a beautiful big ship, they've made me into this dumpy old fishing boat. And the worst part is this guy named Peter owns me, and he's a horrible fisherman. He fished all night. He didn't catch any fish." Well, there was a man nearby that was talking to people about God and his love. But you see, the crowd was so big that they couldn't hear him. And so this man said, "Peter, may I borrow your fishing boat to go out a ways in the water and let the waves and the wind carry my voice back to the people?" And you know what, boys and girls? That person was Jesus. The baby had become a man. And he went out to that fishing boat and he spoke to the people about God's love. And that tree realized something. Wow, God's dreams for me were way better than my dreams. I wanted to be important and a big sturdy ship, and I became a little boat, but look who I am carrying. Not any king, not any world ruler. I am carrying God's Son, the King of Kings. Well, boys and girls, the men came back into the woods, and they cut down the third tree. And that little tree was so disappointed. He said, No, this was not my dream. I did not want to be cut down. I wanted to grow straight and tall, and I wanted to point people to God. And look at this. Now my life is, and now this is bad. They've taken me, and they've made me into a wooden cross. You see, boys and girls, back in those days, a wooden cross was a form of punishment. When people would do horrible crimes like stealing or robbing or murdering somebody, people would hang them on a cross, and they would have to suffer and bleed, and they would die a horrible death. And so this tree was so disappointed. Instead of pointing people to God, they were going to use him for people to be punished on. And he said, "My life is such a disaster." But God said, "Wait, I want to show you something."
And boys and girls, one day, some Roman soldiers did hang a man on that cross. But there was a huge difference. You see, this man was not a criminal. In fact, he was perfect. He had never done anything wrong. He had never even disobeyed his parents or told a little white lie. You see, boys and girls, this man was Jesus, God's Son that we've talked to about this week. And he was hanging on that cross, and he suffered and he died because it was part of God's big plan for you and for me, so that we could someday be in heaven with him, and so that we could have him as our best friend while we're here alive on earth. He didn't understand. The tree didn't understand how he could be used of God in this way. But God had used him for the most precious, precious man ever born, or woman ever born, to hang on. Now, if my story ended there, it would be kind of sad, right? Because Jesus, God's Son, would be dead on a cross. But you see, the best part of the story happens 3 days later. So as tradition dictated, they actually took Jesus off the tree after he died, off the cross, and they buried him in a tomb. And they rolled that tomb with a big stone in front of it, and they sealed it up so that nobody could get in and steal his body, because the soldiers had heard that he might rise from the dead. They didn't really believe it, but they didn't want to take any chances. But you see, boys and girls, because God's power helps us live, it also had the power to roll that stone away. And 3 days after he died, Jesus came back to life. And Jesus is alive today. And so that little tree realized that what he thought was a terrible plan for his life ended up being better than he ever thought, because he actually pointed all people to heaven. Boys and girls, our Bible point today, Jesus gives us the power to live. You have the power to live forever and ever today, not because of you, but because of Jesus, God's Son, dying on that cross and coming back to life. You see, now, all you and I have to do if we want to live forever with God in heaven, and if we want to have him as our best friend here on earth, is say, Jesus, I believe you're God's Son. I believe you died on that cross. But I also believe you came back to life 3 days later. And then if I just tell you I'm sorry for all the bad things I've done, you'll become my very best friend. And boys and girls, when you do that, and when I did that at the age of 7, Jesus became my forever friend. And from that point on, I knew that I would be in heaven with him someday. And so this story was a little longer, but it's so important for you to know that Rocky Railway has been all about bringing you to this point of understanding how much God loves you, and that Jesus' power helps you live.
I'm Isaac and I'm 11 years old. At home I like to, a lot of times I play video games. I have 2 brothers. One's older than me. He's into acting and singing. My younger brother Elijah, he's 7. My sister's name is Zoe, but she, like a normal 4-year-old toddler, will make messes all the time, paint on the walls.
Isaac also dances.
I started dancing, I think like 2 years ago. My favorite kind of dance is contemporary or lyrical. It's sort of like ballet, but it's a little more free. I always felt like when I was dancing, I wasn't really stressed about anything or worried. Sort of forget about anything else that is bothering you.
Isaac had another brother named Joel.
Joel was 2 years younger than I am. He was always really happy and joyful. When he was 1, he was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Cancer is a disease that most kids do not have or get.
He had to do some crazy thing to get rid of it, and it was gone for a year. But then it came back and they said he only had a few months to live, but then he lived 5 more years.
Sadly, Isaac's little brother Joel died.
One of the things I remember a lot about him is he always had that like little giggle. He always loved knocking cup towers down. So he'd make one that was like maybe double the size of him, and he'd run into it and it would come down and he'd laugh so hard. A lot of times we'd take him to this farm. It was like a petting zoo in some places, and you could feed the animals. I have this one memory of Joel. He was feeding the goats, so we give him the bag to reach in and give to the goats, but then he just gives the bag to the goats, and the goat devours the whole thing. Joel always loved animals. One time he got to ride a pony and he was so happy. He loved it.
Isaac misses his brother Joel. Joel loved Jesus and believed in him too.
A lot of times I feel sort of like I miss him and pretty sad, but I'm glad that he's in heaven and he can do so many things that I can't even do right now. Dancing always like cheers me up because it makes me think about God and how he's with Joel and he is amazing.
Isaac knows that because of Jesus, he will be able to see his brother again in heaven.
I sort of look forward to hearing his giggle, and I look forward to running up to him and giving him a grand old hug.
In the Bible, the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 11 says, "The Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you."
I feel like that verse makes me feel like sort of hopeful that we can share the power of God and the Holy Spirit with the whole world, and that one day we can all know Jesus and God and praise and worship together. Even if we die, we still get to live forever in heaven with God, and Jesus' power is letting you live forever.
Jesus' power lets us live forever.
Wow. That video was a little bit sad, wasn't it? It's always sad to hear about somebody you love who dies. But there's a lot of hope in that video too, because Isaac's little brother Joel, he loved Jesus. And so when he died because of his sickness, he went to be right with Jesus. Jesus' power helps us live forever. Have you had somebody in your life that you love, or a dear friend, and they have died? You know, that happened to me really, really recently, just in the last few weeks. I have a very special friend, and
Actually, some of you boys and girls, if you come here and you see me in the overflow zone, before COVID happened, of course, you would remember praying for my friend. And we just really believed, and so did hundreds of people, that maybe God would just touch her and heal her. But a few weeks ago, God decided He would give her the best possible healing, and He took her home to be with Him in heaven. And so even though I'm sad, and I'm sad for her mom and her brother and sister and their families, because she's not with them to talk with them every day, and I can't go on Facebook anymore and see her funny things or read about the books she's reading about Jesus, I know she's not in any more pain, and I know that I'm going to see her someday, just like Isaac will see his little brother Joel. I like what he said, that I can't wait to get to heaven and give him a giant hug. So boys and girls, that's the power of hope Jesus gives us, that we can live forever.
Would you do service for Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily His praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you do service for Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily His praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Oh, there is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.
Hey boys and girls, welcome back to day 4 of Rocky Railway. William and Eliana, thank you for joining me for like almost the last day. Tomorrow is our last day. Have you been having a lot of fun?
Yes.
Awesome, because it's been a lot more fun having you with me. So William and Eliana are going to help me review today. Boys and girls, you see if you can answer the questions at home as well. Now, when I talked about train trivia today, we talked about the speed of some trains. William, how fast can some trains go?
Some trains can actually go 300 kilometers per hour.
Oh my goodness, that is really fast. That's like 3 times as fast as cars if they're going the speed limit. Eliana, who is our Bible buddy today, and can you tell me something about them?
Finn. Finn is a rainbow trout, and he spends 80% of his day eating.
80% of his day eating. That sounds like some of us during COVID, right? Sitting home, eating. Now, William, can you tell us today's Bible point?
Jesus' power helps us live forever.
Yes, that is such a great point. When we have Jesus as our forever friend, He helps us live forever, and we spend eternity with Him. Now, William and Eliana, have you both made Jesus your forever friend?
Yes.
Yeah, I did too when I was about 7 years old. And He is my closest, bestest friend forever and ever. That's so awesome. Well, boys and girls, we have 1 day left. So join William and Eliana and Mrs. Jen and myself and everybody tomorrow for day 5 of Rocky Railway. So till tomorrow. Goodbye. Have a great day.
Bye.